and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We have a great show tonight, but before we start, I want to tell you about one of our sponsors. This July, as we celebrate the birth of our nation, it's important to reflect on the freedoms for which our forefathers fought. Today, these freedoms are under attack. Look no further than the treatment of President Donald Trump. If the left can go after him, they can and will come after us. That's why now more than ever, we need to stick together and we need to fight back. And you can do that by joining AMAC. AMAC is more than just a senior discount organization. AMAC is dedicated to protecting our conservative values and defending our rights. Learn more about how AMAC is actively fighting for our freedoms by visiting amac.us/Lara. By joining AMAC, you're not just becoming a member, you're becoming part of a movement. This July 4th, let's pledge to stand united. Join AMAC today and ensure that our voices are heard. Visit amac.us/Lara, and together we can make a difference. Tonight, we are so excited because we are joined by PragerU's Aldo Buttazzoni, as well as Univision political analyst Vianca Rodriguez. Aldo, how'd I do?
Amazing. Perfect. My noni at home, she'd be smiling that. She'd be very, very proud of you. So thank you so much. That was great.
I'll take it. Vianca, we've never had you on before. We're so excited to get your thoughts and all of your commentary here on the show. I think the one thing that everybody is talking about, it's just top of mind for everyone out there, no matter where you are, is the debate. We got a big debate coming up on Thursday, guys, as everybody knows. And it's been interesting because a lot of people say, well, gosh, if you're going to go debate and try to convince the American people that they should reelect you, because that's really what we're doing here for both of these candidates, reelect you as president of the United States, lay out your vision for America. Tell us what you're going to do to make our lives better and really contrast yourself with the other candidate. It sounds like, though, Vianca, Joe Biden's central argument, and I quote, will focus on Trump's 34 felony counts. Is this, first of all, is this a surprise to anyone? It seems like this has been the plan from the beginning. We know that the Biden campaign just released an ad targeting Donald Trump and talking about him as a convicted felon. However, 27% of people recently polled, Vianca, say that it actually makes it more likely that they will vote for Donald Trump because of this conviction. Do you think that is an advisable tactic to just go in hard on Donald Trump with this 34 count sham felony conviction? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's advisable just as long as they're doing this because of the benefit of Donald Trump and every single Republican and independent voter right now in the country that is not falling for these tactics. I mean, they're desperate. I think that everyone is in agreement with this, like the independent voter that I've been able to speak to down here, especially like the Latino community. They're not having it. They know they've seen these type of tactics before in their own countries. They know that when you go after your biggest political opponent, you're only doing that because you know that you feel threatened by them. So basically that's what's happening right now between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And even though the independent voters are in a way, according to those same polls saying that they feel perhaps a little bit less likely to vote for him, at the end of the day, what's going to shift their mindset and what's been shifting their point of view when it comes to these issues and who they're going to vote for, ultimately, it comes down to the economy and it comes down to inflation and ongoing crime in their communities, as well as the illegal immigration crisis that we're seeing just get worse day by day.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. I think that a lot of people are like, wait a minute, where have I seen this before? Oh, wait, I saw this before in my own life or in my own community, and I know exactly what they're doing here. This has nothing to do with actually seeking justice. Of course, it's about interfering in an election. So, Aldo, let me ask you. Joe Biden has taken the entire week off. He flew to Camp David, I believe last Friday, and he's spending the entire time prepping for the debate. Hold up. They're just firing questions at him, getting him ready, getting him juiced up, giving him a lot of rest, I'm sure. Do we think he's over preparing for this debate? And my question really is, if you're president of the United States, do you need to prepare that much for a debate? I think Donald Trump, if you talk to him, would say, you know what? I've been preparing for this because I was president for 4 years. I understand the issues so well that it's not like I need to have a team of people constantly firing questions at me. You either know it or you don't. It's sort of like he's like the kid who did not study or didn't go to class basically the whole semester. And then the final that counts for all your grade, you're just cramming at the last second. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's been there the whole time. He knows everything going on. Is he over preparing? What do you think of Joe Biden's holding up at Camp David?
Well, you know what? The First Lady, Joe Biden, actually made a really good point last week. She talked about how this debate isn't, or this election isn't about age. It's about cognitive ability. But I think she was pointing her finger in the wrong direction. Because I think the person that's going to have a problem with that is Joe Biden, like you just brought up. I mean, Donald Trump can go anywhere. He's outside the courthouse in New York. He's campaigning in the Midwest. He's out here in California. Everywhere that man goes, people listen. He's coherent. He is the commander. He acts like the commander in chief every day that he's there. And, when he was president, his press briefings, he was up there on the podium multiple times a week, something that Joe Biden, I don't think, has ever done. And so I think it's pretty clear to see who has, the upper hand here. And I think Joe Biden, if they're really going to stick to that script, talking about the 34 counts. So, he's really got to get that down pat.
Yeah, he's got to master that one, of course. He's got a problem, though, Joe Biden, because you are seeing polling come back that I think is very upsetting to the Democrats, Vianca. You look at a state like Minnesota. This is a state that for over half a century has not voted for a Republican. In fact, when Ronald Reagan in 1984 turned the entire map red, Minnesota was the only state he did not win. Minnesota right now is tied between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And I was actually in Minnesota this past weekend. Truth be told, I went for one of my very good friend's weddings. I took about 36 hours off the campaign trail. But wait, did I? Because I was actually in a very important state and I was gathering a lot of intel while I was in the state of Minnesota. And what was interesting to me is that a lot of people sought me out at this wedding. Now, I mean, truthfully, I don't know that was a very, Trumpy crowd, shall we say, but a lot of people sought me out and they basically told me, these are people who live in Minneapolis. They said, listen, Minneapolis has had it. We are done voting for Democrats. We are in dire straits here. For the past 4 years, things have been really tough for us and we want to change. And the fact that I continue to hear that from people in Minnesota, I was like, something is afoot here right now. It's not just Minnesota, though, Vianca. You look at New Hampshire, where Donald Trump and Joe Biden are tied. You look at Virginia, which we've also added to our battleground map. These deep blue states are actually on the verge of flipping red with, of all people, Donald Trump. And I think it's something I love to see, but I want to get your sense in terms of what do you feel has changed that has made people take a different look maybe at Donald Trump right now and why we're seeing these kind of polls.
I mean, obviously, the major change happened when Joe Biden took over the White House. I mean, the economy has been doing the worst that it's ever been since the Democrats have been at the helm of everything. And that's why we're seeing all these rural communities and voters that probably had never considered before, at least not since Richard Nixon, like you were mentioning, voting for a Republican in the case of Minnesota. They're now reconsidering because these are the same voters that were promised, especially the unions, that there were going to be changes, their jobs were going to be protected. But right now they're being constantly threatened because of the rising gas prices, the rising price of being able to afford a home or being able to purchase a first-time home. For the people like me, our generation right now is just, everything is unaffordable. And so obviously this is being felt across every single state. Like no state is being excluded in this situation. That includes Minnesota, it includes Virginia. And I think that, despite what a lot of analysts are saying and claiming, and that Trump allegedly might not be able to win the state, I wouldn't really necessarily rely on that because the polls are showing that Trump is a lot closer to Biden than you could say maybe in the reverse, that Biden is getting away from Donald Trump. I mean, sure, in the last elections, he had won by over 7 percentage points, but the data still is indicating that it's going to be a lot closer than what the Democrats are thinking. And that's why we're seeing that their own local officials are saying, are at least having these arguments with the Biden campaign, saying like, don't take us for granted, because
Yep.
this could have a major impact as well in their local races. And that's what they're so nervous about, because they've had to spend hundreds and thousands, if not almost millions of dollars on their own local races. So I really think that Trump has a major chance to shift everything, especially with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, and him giving him all the necessary advice, to be able to make that final push. And you guys, the RNC had recently opened new offices in Minnesota. I think that there's a lot that can change in these next months.
Well, and something else, Aldo, that I think we can't forget is that if you look back at both of the previous elections where Donald Trump, was running, he was always behind in the polling. In fact, I mean, gosh, look at 2016. He was always behind Hillary Clinton in every single poll. And even in 2020, the fact that you actually have polling now that I always feel like underrepresents conservatives, that in these polls, though, now currently he's tied or ahead of Joe Biden, I got to tell you, makes me think that there really has been a major shift out there. And I want to ask you, you live in the state of California, Aldo. I mean, we saw Ronald Reagan win California, albeit he was the governor of California previously. What's the vibe out in California right now? Do you think people are getting it out there? Do you think people are waking up?
Oh, 100%. Well, I'm on the street, at least once a week. I host the show at Bigger University called Man on the Street. So I'm in Compton, Irvine, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, you name it. And when I talk to people on the street, even if they're not, totally left wing or totally right wing, a lot of people are warming up to the idea. I was in Compton the other day talking to the Black community, and the Democrats would have you believe that those are their pet voters. These are their victim voters that they're going to get every single election. And the Black voters that I talked to in Compton and Irvine, around California, they all love Donald Trump. And to your point earlier, this conviction, I think, is going to help him, because they see that this is an attack by the justice system. It's unjust. And I think this is going to want to make them vote for him even more. But what's even more interesting about this election is the scare tactics the Democrats used in 2016, saying, well, what if Donald Trump wins? Well, now that he did win, he already won. We saw what happened. Nobody left the country. Nobody fled to Canada. The country didn't burn up in flames. So now we have voters asking, well, do we want something that was like the last 4 years of a Joe Biden presidency? Or do we want to return to what our country looked like when Donald Trump ran it? Do we want to return to eggs not being $10 a dozen? Do we want to return to ground beef not being $10 a pound? And I think the choice is pretty clear for most Americans.
I could not agree with that more. I think it's really amazing because I really feel like, and look, we have to play everything like we're behind. Obviously, we can take nothing for granted. But if ever there was a time that I think we're going to see an insane map in the red, on election night, it is this year. Something is shifting. Something is going on. And you're right. The communities around the country, Aldo, where traditionally the Democrats have just assumed they get people's votes, that's not happening anymore. People are like, no, you need to earn my vote. And what have you done to earn my vote? And the answer is Joe Biden and the Democrats have done nothing. In fact, they've made people's lives a lot harder. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to think back to 4 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Even Joe Biden, with his bad memory, can still think back that long, I know, and say, hey, my life was a lot better. I had more money in my pocket. We had a more secure border. We had peace agreements, not wars breaking out across the world. Everything seemed like it was trending in the right direction, and now it's 180 degrees the other way. So I think we're poised for something amazing, and we're going to fight for that. So there's a lot that the left, Vianca, likes to tell us. Oftentimes these things are not true, especially as it relates to Republicans and especially as it relates to Donald Trump. And I guess I'm going to label this one as better late than never. But it's only taken him 7 years. Snopes, that is, the fact checkers over there, who I guess everybody utilizes Snopes as like the ultimate decision in terms of what is real and what is false. Only took him 7 years to admit that Donald Trump never called neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. I'll remind everybody that Joe Biden based his 2020 campaign on this lie. Here's what they say. No, then President Donald Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people in 2017. speaking about a deadly protest in Charlottesville, Virginia. He said, listen up, those groups should be condemned totally. Vianca, this one personally for me has been very upsetting because I know how masterful they are in the mainstream media, because before I actually got the full scope of what he said there, and I just saw the snippet on TV of what they clipped it to say, I myself was like, oh my God, like what is this? Why did he say that? And then I went back 10 seconds later and did a little bit of work and was like, oh, he didn't actually say that. He literally condemned them totally, as I just said. So my question, I guess, is why the heck did it take 7 years for them to finally come out at Snopes and put this lie to bed? Because this is something that the Democrats have seized on every step of the way, and they've used it to divide people. They've used it to fight against Donald Trump. What do you think took them so long, Vianca?
I mean, my theory is the fact that I think that fact checkers in general that work for the mainstream media don't really do a lot of fact checking, but really run kind of like an incognito campaign for the Democrats, or like do that legwork for them. And that's what's been going on this whole time. And it's so sad. I mean, I found it completely disgusting as well, because they could have done it 7 years ago. They decided not to do it until now, when they thought that they could get away with it quietly, assuming that no one else was going to be, enacting their own watchdogs to kind of see whether Snopes would be retracting their own story, like they've done countless of times in the past, especially with COVID and other stories that they labeled as misinformation. But it's just disgusting, because it also goes to show and prove our point that the Democrats have everything on their side. They have all the major institutions, they have all the mainstream media and networks, and they have all these companies that are just constantly working. It almost seems for free for them to kind of do this work for them, these spreading these lies, when we always knew from the get-go. In fact, I remember going on Facebook and just having these arguments with former friends and former colleagues and telling them, like, I heard his speech. He was not talking about the white supremacists. And it's so sad that people either just decided to purposely blind themselves to the truth this whole time, or they just, you know how you repeat a lie over and over again that you start to kind of believe
So
it.
it's true.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's what's happened. And it's tragic, but that's just the truth, unfortunately.
It is honestly, Aldo, it's so disgraceful. These people are an utter disgrace. They know what they're doing. They knew every single time they reported on this, that they wrote a story, they put out a tweet, they talked about it in any sense, that what they were doing was false, that what they were doing was not reality. And I'm wondering out there, are people going to be pissed off about this? Because you ought to be, because you got sold a lie about a person. And it was a big deal. And it really was, it was, defamatory in nature in terms of Donald Trump. How does he get his reputation back now? Joe Biden himself said he was inspired to run against Donald Trump because Donald Trump called Nazis very fine people, neo-Nazis. What, really? Aldo, people better get upset about this. I'm upset about this.
I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that there needs to be some sort of jail time or some sort of serious justice for people that do this, because this isn't just a quiet retraction. This is, like you said, this is dividing the country. This is doing irrevocable damage to our nation. And it's a perfect example of their playbook, right? They lie by omission or by deception. They push the narrative. And then when the story finally starts to die down, then they quietly issue a retraction, but the damage has already been done. And this has been done countless times. You saw this with the Hunter Biden laptop story. You saw this with the Ashley Biden diary story. You saw this with the Steele dossier back in 2016. All of these things, used as a context or a pretext, I should say, by the government to go in and do some investigation or to launch an attack or to spend ad dollars defaming people, defaming candidates. So yeah, this is serious business. I think they are doing this intentionally, and there needs to be some sort of action, because if they've done this and all these other examples, what makes you think that they're not going to ramp it up to 100 in this upcoming election season? I am waiting for it. I'm ready for it. And I think a lot more people need to be have to be ready for it, because it is definitely coming.
All right, if you suffer from chronic pain, listen up. Here's a way to help you get real relief. As a fitness fanatic myself, I understand that recovery is just as important as the workout itself. But whether you're recovering from an injury or just looking for everyday relief from pain in your joints and muscles, nerve pain, fibrosis, and inflammation, I recommend Golden Revive Plus from Up Wellness. This advanced all-natural formula combines 6 powerful anti-inflammatory ingredients, including a proprietary turmeric extract that's 200 times stronger than raw turmeric. All of this to address the root cause of your pain, reducing scarring, swelling, and tissue damage using the healing powers of nature to help your body heal itself. Formulated by husband and wife team Doctors Josh and Amanda Levitt, Golden Revive Plus gives you real pain relief and better range of motion, plus better heart, eye, and brain health. Join the over 300,000 Americans who are already using Golden Revive Plus to get and stay pain-free. For a limited time, you can try Golden Revive Plus for 30% off at goldenrevive.com. Just use promo code Trump at checkout. Now, you might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way they used to. They've been part of cancel culture. So now they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company. But with the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. Their 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. Orders over $75 will receive free shipping. This amazing offer will not last long, so go to mypillow.com and use promo code Trump or call 800-624-3945 today. I think everybody feels that. Everybody asks me, they're like, what are they going to do? Because, I mean, they're running Joe Biden, at least so far. I mean, let's see what happens after Thursday. And I just want to go ahead and state that it's got to be much bigger than just Joe Biden not coming out and being like fully just catatonic. He's got to actually answer for his record, which is, again, terrible and abysmal. But, you know, they got to have something up their sleeve. I think everybody feels that. Every big election cycle, they always call it the October surprise, right? There's always something that happens that they come out with that's such a big deal. Honestly, as it relates to Donald Trump, I think people even 4 years ago would have been like, I mean, they're not going to do anything as crazy as like, I don't know, throw him in jail. Hello, they're trying to throw him in jail. That's already happened. So what's going to happen when we get to October? I don't even know if it even is Joe Biden. Here's the thing. Is it Joe Biden and Kamala Harris who are running, or is it Joe Biden and somebody else, or is it two totally different people? What's going to happen? People have a lot of questions. There's a Washington Post columnist who claims that maybe Joe Biden should still run, but maybe he should replace Kamala Harris with the queen herself, Hillary Clinton. Vianca, Hillary, I mean, we know she would love to take another crack at things as it relates to Donald Trump. Whether or not she would run as VP, I don't know. I'd also like to know how much Hillary Clinton paid this columnist to write this article about her running. You know, you have a third of people polled who think that Kamala Harris could actually win the presidency. Seems kind of high to me, if I'm being really honest with that. But would you advise Joe Biden to replace Kamala Harris with Hillary Clinton? I'm very curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it would be really ironic if they did do that, because if they're supposedly touting themselves as constantly the party for the minorities, they're just going to be pretty much throwing themselves under the bridge by getting rid of the one African-American woman that they decided to bring on board with him. But at the same time, he's going to be proving us right in the sense that it doesn't really matter how you look. It's about what it is that you have to bring and, you know, to the table, and what it is that you're going to do to better our livelihoods, which has been nothing. Doesn't matter who he brings on board, whether it's Kamala, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whether it's Pete Buttigieg, which, by the way, has done a terrible job as our transportation secretary. Like, it's embarrassing. And at this point, I would love for that to happen, actually, because I'm sure Hillary would love it. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if something were to happen to Joe Biden overnight. Just,
Mm.
There he is, he's gone. And then she does this to kind of build herself up to take over
But
and
see,
have her long-awaited wish.
that's where my head went when I read this. I was like, huh, Hillary. And then I was like, wait a minute. Let me play this thing out, Aldo. So I'll get this correct. Ready? So Kamala Harris, we're done with Kamala. Just, as great a border czar as she was, and as great a vice president as she was, all the things she accomplished, got to go. We're going to plug Hillary in. Those two run. They figure out a way to finagle their way into the White House, and then, oops, something happens to Joe Biden. Guess who's president of the United States? It's Hillary, Aldo. I don't know. That's exactly what I thought whenever I read it. Here's what the author of this piece has to say. Parker argues that Harris lacks competency, you think, which deters voters who see Biden's steady decline over the years, and that Clinton could provide reassurance despite being 76 years old herself. If Biden needs to step down, even those who didn't vote for Clinton would have confidence in her ability to keep the country on track. Really? She also believes that Clinton's 2016 loss, which she spent the last 8 years playing the blame game over, still rankles her and leaves her with unfinished business. What do you think, Aldo?
How ominous. You said that so jarringly. I'm like shaking in my chair here, Lara. No, I don't really see this as a viable thing, because listen, Joe Biden is the perfect candidate because he is, his cognitive ability has declined so much. He's failing upwards. I think he's the easiest politician to control. And I think if you're going to put Hillary in there, there's really no point. If she's really pulling all the levers, she can do that from where she's sitting right now. She doesn't need to be up there on the stage. I think she can, have her influence from behind the scenes, probably as she's doing right now, because one thing is for sure, I don't know everything, but I know Joe Biden isn't making all the decisions and he's not calling all the shots. That is clear.
That's very apparent. We're in June. We're just at the tail end of June. It's been Pride Month for the month of June. And here's my thing, Vianca. I just want people to be happy. Whatever you want to do as an adult, I'm very happy for you to do. If you're not injuring anyone else, or you're not, causing problems out there, please go do your thing. You do you. And I think most people in this country are just like, that's great. We're happy if you're gay. We're happy if you're straight. We just want you to go do your life. I think the problem comes in, of course, whenever you start infiltrating our children and you have, drag queen story hours and things where the kids are learning about stuff that really they don't need to be talking about. I didn't know the sexual orientation of my teachers growing up. I didn't even know if many of my teachers were married, except for how they, Mrs. versus Miss in front of their names. The women, the men, I had no idea, nor should I, because it doesn't matter. We're here in Pride Month and everybody has to celebrate. So you think there's a safe space with Legos? My kids love Legos. Apparently not. They have a full thing that they did for Pride Month with, I guess it's supposed to be a lot of gay Legos. I don't know what the story of what this one is. They had furries as well as drag queens and the whole bit for kids, supposedly, Vianca. Again, that's great. How many adults, though, are playing with Legos? And if you are, there might be something a little wrong with you. Why did Legos feel like they needed to go so far out of the way with this one, with the furries and the drag queens? I just don't get it.
It's the problem with so many corporations and companies. They're doing the same thing in Disney, going after Star Wars and having to make it the most diverse and most inclusive series possible, while completely detracting away from the main message of what the movie or the movies are about. And that's what we're seeing happen with Lego as well. And it's awful, because kids are not really interested, like you said, in somebody else's sexuality, nor should it be relevant to build Legos, for God's sake. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. I took my dog to PetSmart over the weekend to go get groomed, and I was literally seeing the same thing for dogs, where they could wear the little Pride Month logo situations and decorative bandanas and whatnot. And it was hilarious, because right next to it was also the Team USA type of things and America and getting ready for 4th of July. And that side was actually almost out of stock, while all the other Pride Month items were still fully stocked. And so that also goes to show that there's just no real demand for that type of stuff. People are realizing that this is just one big wave of endless pandering to a community that oftentimes is just unnecessary, because like you said, this has nothing to do with kids. It shouldn't have anything to do with children to begin with. Kids are right now trying to focus on whether they can go outside, go roll in the mud like I used to when I was little, go scrape their knees, riding their bicycles, hanging out with their friends. They have nothing to do with sexuality. And I think it's really disturbing that we're seeing constantly, especially during the month of June, a constant desire to be instilling these adult values in kids that just don't have anything to do with that type of mindset. So I'm not surprised, but it's really annoying. But at the same time, I haven't lost complete faith in our society, because like I said, I'm not seeing a huge demand for that. If anything, a lot of people are just starting to more publicly push back, and companies are feeling it.
Yeah. Aldo, I think, listen, most of America is just like, listen, you go do your thing. Are we going to have a Pride Month forever that every June it feels like they up the ante and they got to go bigger and crazier? Are we ever going to get to a place where we're just like, yeah, everybody accepts this. We're good. We don't need to get crazy with this anymore. But I think what they're doing so oftentimes in this attempt to, I guess, pander, is that they're really turning a lot of people who just don't care. They're kind of turning people off. They're like, well, this is crazy. It's just a little bit too much now with the Legos too.
The gay community doesn't even want this. I shot another man on the street in West Hollywood at the beginning of Pride Month, and I asked the gay community, has it gone too far? None of them knew what any of the flags meant. All of them thought that this was going too far. The twerking on, these parade floats and the kids watching, they were all in agreement. This is too far. So this really is a small fringe that is trying to indoctrinate children. And, I looked up this Lego set before the show, and it says 18 plus on it. Let me just say something. If you're over 18 playing with Legos, there's something wrong.
Give us a call. We'll help you. There's something going on here.
If you're under 18 and you're marketing this gay Lego set to people under 18, we also have a problem. So any way you skin the cat here, any way you look at it, there's a serious problem going on. But I think this fringe that is preying on kids, listen, if you can't reproduce, you got to recruit. And I think a lot of them are trying to get these kids really young and trying to recruit them into this thing because, kids got to be kids. And I think we got to stop, destroying their innocence. The Human Rights Watch, they were talking about just recently, I think it was just yesterday, about how in 25 states or in all these states, there is an attack on transgender, quote unquote, youth. And they identified this group as being 13 to 17 years old. And they are advocating for 13 to 17-year-olds having the ability to mutilate their genitals and chemically castrate themselves. Right. So to your point, if you're an adult, I still think it's evil. I still think it's wrong. But at the very least, let us protect our kids and stop talking about sex when it comes to minors.
But that's the thing. It's all about sex. That's what we're talking about. It's about who you want to have sex with. Yeah. That should have no bearing on anything when it comes to kids. My gosh, kids grow up so fast as it is these days. I got a 6-year-old, my 6-year-old, by the way, who's going into first grade. If you ask him what grade he's going into, he'll tell you I'm going to college next year. They all want to be grown-ups already, right? Just let them be kids for a little bit longer. They should be out riding their bikes. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what my kids are doing as we speak right now. It's so sad that it feels like their innocence is just being ripped away from them. We know there's social media out there. We know with the internet you have access to so much, but it's just very frightening to see that they're just, at these young ages, it's just being torn away from them. Something that I think probably upsets most people is when you see these climate change activists, eco-activists, Vianca, who just go out to basically vandalize things. We've seen it recently with, very valuable artwork. These are historic pieces, one of a kind. You're never going to replicate them, and they vandalize them in some way. They glue themselves to something. So Stonehenge, as many people know, is from the Bronze Age. This is 3300 BC to 1200 BC. This is between the Stone Age, which everybody thinks of as like, that's very old, and the Iron Age. So this Stonehenge is super old, right? And it's such a place that people go. It's got a bit of a spiritual vibe to it, I think, for a lot of people. And you had these climate activists who went out there, and I'm just going to read an excerpt of what exactly happened according to one of them. And then I want to get your response, Vianca, on the other side. The guy says, "We were completely focused on our task. We were aware of them." Apparently there were some other folks out there who were kind of chanting and like just annoying them a little bit. "We were aware of them. We were aware of the shouting, and we didn't make eye contact with anybody in the world. We avoided eye contact because people were trying to send hostile messages to us. There was a group of young American people, mainly males, who just kept up a continuous barking and shouting of what they thought were clever, provocative things because this action was in support of Just Stop Oil. They started chanting oil and boasting that they would go back and use even more oil. So that was kind of reaction. People were silent." So basically what happens.
And Lara, I want to apologize for that right here on air. I'm really sorry for those words, you know.
Yeah. Here's the best part. You got these guys out there. They're trying to do some kind of protest at Stonehenge against oil. And they get so enraged because there are like these, in my mind, these fratty guys, no offense to you, Aldo, who are out there, these American guys who are like, oil, I'm going to go back and use oil. That they literally go and they spray paint Stonehenge. I mean, Vianca, listen, there are a lot of people who probably can commiserate with these folks. They're like, oh, whatever, I buy into the climate change stuff. Although I could spend a whole episode talking about how this is a natural progression of Earth cycles, but I digress. If you want to go out and protest against oil, yeah, great, go ahead and do it. But please don't vandalize this, several thousand-year-old Stonehenge that, I mean, you can't replicate that. That kind of thing, I think, turns off everybody.
It's ridiculous. I mean, these are the same people that are eating themselves. The left eats their own eventually because you have so many different factions. You have the more, I guess, moderate part of the left that doesn't really exist anymore, that is trying to survive. And then you have all these other factions that are adding more pressure on Joe Biden and the Democrats and just, trying to make climate this huge priority while at the same time ruining what it is that is the essence of their own movement by doing these types of things. Because like you said, like this is something extremely historic, has been around for millions and millions of years, we could even say at this point. And their decision to try to raise awareness on a very, very pressing issue, in their opinion, is by ruining and vandalizing the very same things that we're supposed to preserve from nature. I mean, we don't even know how many chemicals are in those things that they used that could probably contribute to damaging them long term by oxidizing the rocks and simply, the minerals and whatnot. And I mean, in a way it's hilarious, but in another way it's very sad because they're ruining exactly what they claim so much to be trying to protect.
Right.
They did the same thing with Taylor Swift, with her plane, and maybe that would have been a little bit more impactful, but even then it's not really doing much of a difference because Taylor Swift's just going to get back in her plane, laugh at them while she's up in the air, and everybody else is going to be continuing to do the same. But at the same time, it's a good highlight of how the same left is very hypocritical with and among themselves. So yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you beyond that, but they don't represent me.
Well, they don't. I'm trying to find exactly who these people represent. The chemicals they probably had to use, Aldo, to clean off Stonehenge just negated anything that these people were trying to do. Here's one of my favorite comments from the whole thing. Somebody says in the comment section, we didn't make eye contact with anybody in the world because we knew what we were doing was crazy and everyone hates us for it and we're ashamed deep down. There, fixed it for you. But their party's in power right now, right? Yeah. Like the Democrats really are in charge, at least here in America. And I'm trying to figure out, Aldo, what would work for these people? What do you think it would take for them to calm down? I mean, do we just need to shut down all of the power grids. Like we're going to start from scratch, just go back to living on the land, like a naked and afraid situation. Where do you think you would have to go in order to appease these people?
I think these protesters just need to come to America and relocate to Portland, Oregon, and their lives will change. They can be in their little communes. I think that would be good for everybody. But even from a marketing standpoint, I mean, they recognize themselves that everybody hates them. Nobody's going to be stuck in traffic or out, to the museum, seeing them do these things and think, you know what? These people seem rational. Let's sit down at a table. Let's hear them out. Let's see what they want. No, nobody's going to do that. In fact, they're probably going to side. The normal person is going to side with the frat bro that's making fun of them and trying to make some humor out of this stuff. No, so even from a marketing standpoint, I don't think they're getting any support. I think really we need to do a case study on these people to find out how we can get the most people to hate an organization in the shortest time possible, because they're doing that in real time, and it's pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, they're doing a great job at that. Before we go, I just want to give you guys a quick story that happened to me over the weekend. I mentioned I was in Minnesota for my friend's wedding, and then I flew back very early on Sunday morning. Obviously, it was a fun night, later night, had an early flight, got to get back to my kids, get back to reality. It's the only break I'm taking, by the way, until November 5th of this year, just so we're all clear. So I got on this early flight, and I had gotten myself a coffee in the airport on the way. And if you haven't been in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, wow, it is full-blown chaos. And I'm talking, this is like 6:15 in the morning. Crazy. The lines around the place. Go early is what I'll tell you. So I got a coffee on the way to my flight. I get on the flight. I put my coffee down. Hadn't even had a sip of it yet. And I put my bag up over top. And my coffee's sitting there on the little spot in between me and the person who's sitting next to me. And I happened to graze my coffee with my bag as I was putting it under the seat in front of me. Coffee spilled all over a woman who was sitting next to me for a 2.5-hour flight.
Oh, no.
All over her. Vianca, I was first of all mortified and just like very upset with the whole situation. And she could not have been nicer. I want to tell this story because I don't know if this woman knew who I was at all. I'm going to guess no. I didn't ask her clearly, but she was so kind about it and very nice. And I want to know if you've ever experienced a situation where you could have been terrible, but you were instead nice to people, or vice versa, somebody was nice to you. Because I got to tell you something. It was, very warranted. I actually said to her, I was like, could you please get a cup of coffee and pour it on me? Because I will feel much better about this whole situation. We need more of that. So to this woman out there whose name I didn't get because it's too embarrassed to ask, thank you for being so nice to me. I felt horrible the whole flight back to New York, the whole time in the airport until I got home. And I was like, oh, it's horrific. Should we have more of that out there, Vianca? Because I think we should. More understanding.
Yeah. I think especially, those of us that work constantly in media and in communications, we see so many negative stories all the time, and it takes such a toll on our mental health and our emotions and everything. And obviously we want to keep up the good fight against these crazy liberals and the evil Democrats. But I think that at the same time, we should also try to keep, in some capacity or another, our humanity. I mean, I know that we lose our patience a lot. Like everything is just constantly bringing us down. Like we're constantly thinking about whether we're going to get sufficient groceries for the week. The fact that the groceries keep going up, and that's something that I keep battling with my husband. It's like, I don't know if we're going to keep getting the same ribeye steaks constantly next week, but
not unless Donald Trump is back in the White House.
That's right. That's right. But this weekend I went to Trader Joe's to go shopping for groceries, and I had grabbed my cart. I saw some wonderful hydrangeas that I was going to just cut up and place on my center table. And as I was getting the flowers, somebody took my cart, and I was like, do you want to choose violence today, or do you want to choose peace and be nice and just go get another cart? So I went ahead and I went to go get another cart. And while I was doing that, the store manager comes up to me and he goes, oh, do you want me to pick the right cart for you? Because that one's doing a little squishy, squiggly sound. It's not working. And I was like, sure. And he goes and he grabs another one for me, and super nice. He tests it out for me before he gives it to me. And I was like, thank you so much. So I guess there was a kind action or good karma out of it from choosing to just ignore this very annoyingly unnecessary situation and, going with the punches with it, going with the situation.
I feel like
Yeah.
we don't hear enough about these things because honestly, Aldo, life is so crazy right now for so many people. But I think it would actually go a long way for us to just remind each other of like just positive things in humanity like this. That's just like, you know what? We may disagree politically on things, but you know what? At the end of the day, we should all stop and realize that we can all be kind to one another sometimes and just be gracious about things. I love to hear that from Vianca. How about you, Aldo? Any good stories?
Well, first of all, I agree 100%. I think that is really nice. And I tell people all the time, yes, we look at the news all the time. Yes, there are things that are going on that are horrible. But when I walk outside my apartment and I talk to my neighbors or I talk to the person on the plane next to me, we actually live in a great country. People are generally nice. People are generally good people, I think. And I think that's really nice. Something funny that comes to mind when I hear this is just the road rage stuff. And, in LA and California, the roads are crazy. And I get cut off all of the time. And my girlfriend who lives in Vegas, when she's out here, it surprises her. And it really kind of makes her mad sometimes. When people will cut me off, she goes, "Why didn't you honk?" And I'll just tell them, you know what? Life is too short. The moment has passed. Just let people go. No need to raise tensions here and get even more upset. So that's what comes to mind personally. I just like
That's
to,
nice.
let the moment pass. Let everybody chill out. We got to relax.
Yeah.
We got bigger things to deal with. So think bigger picture. And
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I like that. Yeah, let's focus our energy on the things that actually matter. Literally saving this country, which is exactly what I know all of us here want to see happen. Well, Vianca, thank you. Thanks for joining us for the first time here in The Right View. We hope you'll come back. And Aldo, thank you as always for being here. You guys are the best. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.
And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide. And they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.